R&B 103, where the music plays, we have the legendary Ken Spider Webb, my mentor. We go way back. How you doing, Ken?
Chicken, but not high.
First, let's take it back, Ken, man. We go back, from the 80s.
You know, I have some pictures that I took when I came down to St. Croix. You might be in some of the pictures. I'm going to go look for them. I remember we went to a graduation. So high school, I think, with Joe Barr and the station that he had down there. I think you were there, too, because I got pictures of you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you look like you're in high school.
Yeah, well, back then. You know, we have you on R&B 103. You run the Jazz from the City bonus hours every week at 6 p.m. Our listeners are loving it. But let's talk about your history and your experience in radio, because I remember seeing you at a high school basketball game when you were playing basketball with the Sure Shots.
Oh, yes.
I was a young kid then. I went up to you. I was like, I want to do what you do. And your exact words were, go to school and learn to read. I don't know if you remember that, but it had to be in the 70s, Ken. But since that time, you have got me to do mornings in Indianapolis and just on and on and on and on and on. So I respect you for that. But this internet radio thing, a lot of people don't know that you were one of the original people that started this internet radio and programming and music. And I remember back in the 90s, early 90s, you had called me one day and you said, guess what? I'm on the internet. My question is, where do you think this thing is headed, Ken?
Well, because of the technical side of this thing, everybody's talking about it. It's no big secret now. The AI has been discovered or invented. Going from analog television and analog radio to this AI changes the whole communication thing. I always think of one example that back in when we started streaming, and I met a brother out of Washington State, Seattle, Washington, but he was in the technicians department, and that's where I came from. I could understand what he was saying. I had in my bag a CD, and it had a lot of James Brown music that I put on it. He talked to me about this streaming because they were doing that, studying it. They're trying to sell it, get it going. I gave him the CD. He took it and went back to Seattle. In the next week or so, we were talking. He says, Ken, I want to show you something. Go to your computer, put in the link, click it. I clicked it. When he played that James Brown CD, he says, well, hold on one second, because I wasn't getting the point. It never registered. And he played the CD that I gave him, and he took back to Seattle.
Wow.
And I said, wait a minute, how did you do that? And that started. We got to the point where we would stream a program from one of the islands in the Caribbean. We had a program that was 1 hour long. We streamed it live. After we finished that hour, we went to listen to the playback. We heard the beginning of our program because the stream would take so long. Now streams are, I guess, maybe a second or two apart now.
How long ago was that? It had to be in, what, the early 90s?
Yes, it was. But that was the thing that kind of showed us what we could do. But you know what you could do with streaming now.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know this. You, Ken Spider Webb, were one of the actual originators of this streaming thing. Being a pioneer of this streaming thing, look where it got me. I said, man, Ken, I'm done with radio. I'm going to go stream. What are you doing? Can you help me go through this? And look at where we are now. Let's take it back to the BLS KISS days, where a lot of radio personalities emulated you. Let's talk about that for a minute.
At WBLS, there was one star, and it was Frankie Crocker. and he loved that position. So he always wanted to have a number one station in New York. So my work at WBLS, from my viewpoint, was just working, doing the best job that I could.
When I started doing morning, we used to talk, we get up 4 o'clock in the morning. We're in the station by 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we're out of there by 1 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
And they would just say, man, they're paying us to do this?
Yeah. Well, I was a ham radio operator too. W82 BQM was my call letters. It's from the technical side, and working with radio was just something that was like putting on shoes, It was no problem. Because as you know, I can come down to WBIS, came down, met Wendy Williams down there.
You kind of like nurtured Wendy Williams as soon as she came out of college.
In New York at that time, as a FM station, that was something else too. Because car radios didn't have FMs in it, they had AMs in it. And here we come with WBLS WBLS,
Right.
Everybody had to get an FM radio. Get one of adapters you put it in their cars.
Right.
They encouraged car manufacturing companies to put AM and FM radios in the cars. It was a new era. It provided people with something new as far as the receivers now that you could use at home and stereo channels and speakers and all of that. That was elementary to me. I knew it was going to happen. So it comes easy, especially with young people like Wendy at the time. There's a side of Wendy that most people don't really know, and that is we weren't that close, but her godfather was my first cousin, Regis Webb. In other words, Wendy's parents were in the same generation with my cousin.
You mentoring her, which a lot of people don't know, and, where she is now, of course, she's going through a little challenge right there, but she'll be okay.
In her movie, Jeff Fox and I were on the air together at WBLS. And in the movie, Wendy, she talks about coming to New York.
Right.
Of course, the storyline of the movie is much different than what really happened. Jeff and I, they have two people playing the part of Ken Webb and Jeff Fox. It's about 20 minutes into the movie. I said, all they had to do was call me and Jeff. And we'd have been there. They make a movie, which is different.
Let's talk about your getting into radio. Well, we know you were a ham operator. How did you get that job at BLS? Because I always wanted to work there. How did you do that? How did you land that job?
Believe it or not, I taught in the Department of Communications. I was an instructor at Brooklyn College. And on the weekends, I would go out to Long Island, WBAB, AM and FM. How did I get in there? Oh, I went somewhere and I had met the owner of the station, Ms. Hornstein, and then she wanted somebody to fill in on the weekends. But when I got in there, I would play my home collection. I'd bring my box in there with all my records in it. And I had a first-class license, so I could technically help the station out, the chief engineer with the antennas, transmission lines, studio equipment, anything. Just generally clean up, man. I even cleaned up the bathroom because those folks didn't clean the bathroom. That's what you do at that time. That's what we did. Miss Hornstein wanted me to do a show for Saturday, Sunday night. Frankie Crocker had a Silver Cloud Rolls Royce. Those European cars had FM radios in them and also shortwave radios in them and AM in them. So Frankie comes out to Long Island to visit somebody, and he's going through the FM, and he hears the stylistics, people make the world go round. He says, where is this coming from? So he would listen, and come to find out, he found my phone number, or found the number of the station where I was, WBAB, and called out there and said, I want to get a message to Ken Webb. We're starting a new station in New York City, and I want him. And I still have the little blue message unit. Call Frankie Crocker. Miss Hornstein said, look in your mailbox because Frankie Crocker called the station. I talked with him. I think they want you in New York. I don't know nothing about those city slickers. I'm Long Island. I called Frankie, got an appointment. He said to me, we're looking for a morning guy. And that's a whole story of how that happened. Paid me pretty good too. When I got to WBLS, it was a brand new format because Billy Taylor, who used to be a general manager of WLIB, AM and FM, he had just left, and Inner City bought the station from Mr. Novick.
Okay.
And they didn't have enough money to buy AM and the FM. So they bought the AM, which was the moneymaker. That was the station everybody could listen to, Eddie O.J., Soul of Sunrise.
Right.
But now they had 2 years to come up with the money. Inner City only had enough money for one station with a 2-year option to get the FM. So the old owner took the FM and moved downtown and made Frankie Crocker the program director. So people now who turn on to LIB, they would hear Eddie O.J., but this new station, that's stereo, would now hear somebody new. WBLS really pushed the stereo and the clarity. WBLS, the total black experience in sound. Madison Avenue didn't like the black in there because we got to get advertisers, and you had advertised people were afraid of the word black. So we took that out and said the total experience in sound. With BLS, I could put it all together. I knew the town, most every other DJ work their way to New York.
It was like a learning experience. It's like you can't work in New York if you don't know New York. If you don't know where 5th Avenue and 34th Street is, you're out of luck, partner.
Quick story that supports what you just said. After we got going and got moving and grooving 3-4 years down the line, Frankie would hang out in California, in Hollywood. And he met these two guys that were on the air that, voices would sound good. They sounded really good on the air. So he brought them into New York and started working. And these guys were stone scared. They got on the air one time and said, we're from California. We don't know too much about New York, but we know everybody moves fast, running here and running there and jumping on trains and buses and cabs here. Where is everybody going? What's happening? They were out on the corner of 42nd Street and 2nd Avenue, which is right around the corner from the radio station. And people were hitting them, bumping into them. They get out of the way because I gotta go. So I gotta move. These guys were in the way.
Right.
They had enough. They were frustrated. They were supposed to come to work one day, and they went to the airport, got on planes, and went back to L.A. They could not take New York City.
New York, yeah.
They couldn't handle it. It shows you that they had to work toward New York.
Right.
Frankie himself, he was from Buffalo, and they went to Pittsburgh, they went here, they went there, and they finally came to New York. I would say 97% of the people who work on air in New York were from out of town. You had Vi Higginson was from New York. Lamar Renee was from New York.
Oh, Lamar Renee, speaking of, I'm glad you brought that up. I remember Lamar Renee was on the air. She came on right after, I think, Frankie Crocker. And she was on the air listening to it. I said, I love the way she sounds. She says, I'm going to go tinkle and be right back. I'm like, what? It might have been like 2 songs, a couple of commercials, because I know a lot of men were glued to the radio to hear her voice again because she said she was going to go tinkle. I will never forget that.
Well, you see, most people don't know it, but Lamar was actually 17 years old when Frankie put her on the air.
Really?
Yeah, she probably turned 3 months later, and Frankie put her on the air.
Wow.
Because she was from New York. She had something. And I think that's what Frankie always kept in his mind. He never really said it, but talking with him, they had to talk like they know what they're saying and know what they're doing. In other words, if you're going to talk about a play on Broadway, when you work in New York, you got to know how strong Broadway is.
Right.
Here's a lesson that he taught me. I know New York, or people would say, yeah, Ken knows New York. He lives in Long Island. So I got the bright idea one day to announce the result of a hockey game, because I would read the baseball scores, the basketball scores. That's the way it fell in my head. Why not hockey? So I decided to give the score, the standings in the playoff. I couldn't announce these names. I don't know the Kaskowski and Bobenowiks and all of that. I don't know those guys. And I ended up spelling the people's name. RSKECKWY. He scored so many hockey points last night. You should have heard that. It was embarrassing. You should have heard what it sounded like coming out of the radio. Spelling the most popular hockey players that everybody knows you don't know hockey. Now, this is what I want you to do. Frankie got tickets to go to a hockey game and get the program with the players' names on it. Find out how to pronounce that Czechoslovakian name.
Right. I hear you. Developing the urban contemporary sound. You and Frankie had a big part of developing that sound for FM radio. Where do you think it's headed now? It doesn't sound the same, I can tell you that. But there are a lot of stations that still follow you guys' format.
Well, I would say today's help is AI, because it can reach back and do what we did in developing the WBLS format. In other words, when we started that format, when Frankie started it, I always felt that I knew more about the format than anybody. Frankie put it in different ones who were naturally receptive, and the format was pleasing to their ears because they were New Yorkers.
Okay.
We could draw from what was happening on Broadway, what was happening at the Apollo. We were the artificial intelligence.
Okay, I got you.
I mean, you could hear George Benson, the stylistics, Michael Jackson, James Brown, all in 1/2 an hour. Nowadays, the distance between the artists and the people that listen to it collectively can be captured on Facebook. Now artists don't have to, they're not lost in the sauce between the artist, the producer, the writer. I mean, the whole business has been changed because of today's world. The artist now can talk directly to the people who buy or support their music. The old time thing was a record producer would have to make sure he's got to pay the writer uniforms for the artist to outfit themselves on the stage. So the only way he could get money back would be to put their name on publishing. You put your name down underneath the writer of the song. The only way money would come back. And even at that time, it was very, very slow coming back. Now you can take your cell phone out and you can talk directly to the people. Mason Lee does a radio show playing her music from her kitchen table while she's cooking dinner. And a beef that I've always had, though, was, you got the Grammys. It's all about music, playing it on the radio, online. Only once did I notice where they paid a tribute. Really, it wasn't the Grammys. It was Michael Jackson when he got a Grammy. He said, before I go, I want to just thank all the radio DJs that played my record. Thank you very much.
Right.
Nothing about the music. And we DJs are the last people to touch your brand new record before it goes out on the air. And we're not
recognized
at all.
Well, Ken, these stories that you're telling me are really heartfelt and from different programmers from across the country. Well, EJ, how did you get your station to sound like that? How did you do that? Was it luck? No, it's not luck. But I'll tell you what, I am not giving you the keys to the Rolls Royce. You're not going to drive my car. So you guys developing this urban contemporary format that also affected a lot of people's lives. You were there live. In other words, if we weren't hearing Ken Spider Webb in the morning saying that I'm giving you 5 more minutes before you get up, whether it was 5 minutes or not, you just wanted to hear it. Or even deeper than that, especially in the mornings, however you wake people up, I'm giving you 5 minutes or whatever, it made you feel like everything was okay for the day. Hear your morning colors roll with that, and then you would actually go to work and see if people had those colors on. Yeah. Stuff like that they just don't do anymore, and that's that real, one-on-one personal type talking as far as being a radio personality, the way we used to do it, or the way you guys used to do it back then, especially in New York. I know there were a lot of personalities that tried to emulate what you guys did, your sound, your flavor, your community events, on and on and on and on. I'll just be honest with you. In my opinion, there's been no station to even come close to BLS. And when you went to KISS, that was a different story because the music genre was changing a lot. But as far as developing the way radio is now and what these music artists are singing now, there's no comparison. That's why, in my opinion, a lot of stations are going back to try and get that 40 to 75-year-old audience, male and female.
Well, one of my best experiences that just took me to the floor was my lawyer when I was at KISS, back and forth with KISS and BLS. One of his clients was a woman who lived on the Upper East Side, and she was a good friend of Jackie Kennedy. This woman who owned these cleaners on the Upper East Side was with a group of her college graduates. They were Tilted Music, and they produced the concert at Carnegie Hall.
Okay, yeah.
Now, she was a client of my lawyer. And so when you have big conference like that, the law firm gets all their people in show business and radio and television to support what they do. So I ended up as an MC, me and another person, I forgot the woman's name, she was at WCBS. We go to the Carnegie Hall, we do the MC job, and after it was over, we went to the Sign of the Dove, and Jackie Kennedy had come to the concert. They produced a blues festival, a real down dirty blues festival at Carnegie Hall. After it was over, we go there, and I was the only black person I could see, and Jackie Kennedy came in, and she was sitting there talking with her girls. They were in their college mind, they're talking. Richard Savitsky was my lawyer. I said, Richard, I gotta meet Jackie Kennedy. My mother loves her, and I gotta talk to her. This is the only time I'll get a chance. I really got. He says, oh, Ken, you're sweating me. I said, yeah, I'm gonna sweat you real good because I gotta meet her. I just got to be. Time went by, and then I see Jackie come over by the fountain, the water fountain, and they were talking. She turned around, and she came straight at me. She says, "Hi, Ken Webb. How you doing?"
What?
I said, "Oh, okay. How did you know me?" He says, "Yeah, well, I know you, Richard, and all. He you know." This. She says, "And by the way, Ken, how are those twins of yours?" I said, how did you know that I had twins? And she took her finger, poked me in the stomach, and said, "You work on the radio, remember that?"
Wow.
I was finished.
Yeah, man.
I was totally finished. I all but fainted right there on the spot. You know how you see pictures of movies and things where a little girl gets to see one of the stars and he kissed her on the head and she drops. That's where I was just about to go down.
I can relate to that. Oh, man, that is a beautiful story.
And I said, my goodness, man. I came home. I told my mother, I said, "Mom, Jackie Kennedy punched me, just took her finger and pushed it in my stomach."
Yeah. And, you know, things like that in your life you never forget for the rest of your life. I got one little quick story, then we got to go, Ken. I remember down at the Fox Theater in Brooklyn, New York. You remember they used to have like the Murray the K swinging soiree? This evening they had Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. So after the show was over, you know how everybody goes to the back and they try to catch the artist coming out.
Yeah.
Right? And out came Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, but it was Patti in particular. So I'm like, "Oh, Patti LaBelle, Patti LaBelle, Patti LaBelle." And she came over and she had kissed me on my cheek. I would never forget that. I don't forget it to this day.
That's what keeps you alive.
Yeah. So one day, Ken, you know how we used to have those personality workshops, you know, Jack the Rappers and stuff like that? She was performing. And after her performance, she was like in the meet and greet area. I finally got up to her and I said, "Patti, I loved you ever since I was a little kid. And I remember you giving me a kiss on my cheek." And she says, "Here's another one." Bam! And I mean, everybody was like, how did he get to do that?
Who is he?
Yeah, who is he? You know, that's sort of a way. So I can relate to just having people that have been a part of your life that, you know, you remember for the rest of your life. That Jackie Kennedy story was one of them. Yeah.
Next time we talk, we'll talk about my Patti LaBelle backstage story.
Yeah, okay. Well, Ken, I want to thank you very much. We can catch your Jazz from the City. That's every Sunday at 6 p.m. bonus hours with my friend, my mentor, Ken Spiderweb. All right, thank you very much, Ken, and thanks for being a part of our station.